Thank you for joining this session. Although, for wherever you are, not so many people here, but it's nice to see new faces anyway. So the session today is going to be about reporting again. This is boring and probably not that attractive for developers or not the DBA alike. It's something that caused a lot of pain for the DBA, so they probably just went to another room. However, we still have reporting functionality that we must provide in our progress and open edge applications. So this is still a topic on our progress user groups. I'm going to keep a session that is going to be more a reflection of what the approach are on reporting. Is not going to focus on a particular solution. There are so many good solutions in reporting in open edge world and generic reporting solutions. So we are going to discuss about what is there, but more about what is going to be your approach on having the reporting functionality added. Well, they say that today the data is the new oil, and that might be true for some companies, especially the new one rebranded as Meta, maybe, but still, nevertheless, the data. We have a lot of small applications that get into the picture. We have IoT that is feeding a lot of information. We have mobile and web application as well as chatbots. So everything is increasing that data volume. The idea is that what we are going to do with that data after you capture that. That's why reporting is going to be an important part of your application, because you want to know what is happening in your business, what the trends are. So it's not only what we used to have before, when you just printed the operational report, that you have an invoice or a purchase order or stuff like that. Now there are so many information that you have to drill through and you have to make sense of that information somehow. So that's the prediction that the data is going to grow. In that amount of data, the prediction for 2020 was 64.2 zettabytes, which was underestimated because of that COVID-19 crisis that apparently increases the data volume more. But anyway, the data volumes are going to grow. That's clear. What we used to have in, we used to call the business application was the data presentation. You have a data, but you want to present the data in somehow a graphical format or just a report that you want to show to your customers, or something that it's operational that you want to present to your client, like an invoice or any other legal document that you have to send to your customers. Then another idea was to that are going to help you get a clear view on the current situation of your business. The main issues, the main point there was the key performance indicator, that it was like I don't know, a dashboard of your car that shows you the speed that you currently have, how many miles that you can go on with the current speed, and that stuff, that kind of information. That was a thing a couple of years ago. I think now is not that on a hype anymore, but it's still an important piece of that reporting information that you can have. And then with analytics, it's not just the car for you. Go to the whole historical data and trying to see what the trends are, what is happening exactly, and trying to come up with predictions and see later on if those predictions were actually valid or not. And part of that was also the data mining. There are some kind of special kind of people that like to look into those data volumes and see try to make a sense out of that large volume of data and see if there is a pattern there and trying to come up with prediction. And nowadays we are talking about business intelligence and especially artificial intelligence and machine learning. The whole idea here with machine learning it's that maybe we can get the machines doing that data mining and trying to come up with algorithms that can do the prediction for us. And this is probably what the big companies like Google and Facebook are doing with the data that we are feeding in every day. For open edge reporting, I don't know what your application are using for reporting. The solution that was provided by Progress, it was called Report Builder. It's been deprecated for a couple of versions already. The runtime is still there, so you can still use it, but you cannot change your report. You cannot do anything with you cannot create new reports. Yeah, it's probably not a core functionality for Progress, and they just stopped providing something. It's more or less the same thing that they did with UI component. They actually stopped doing that, and you can actually go and find your own solution. But the good news is that there are plenty of third-party solutions that you can choose for. When you look at how you can get a reporting solution integrated somehow in your application, then you have to think about, do I need to have that embedded in my application? Do they need to start the reports, access the reports from inside our application, or it can be a separate part of that, a separate component that is going to only use the data from my application, not embedded in my application? It's of course choose on the operating system. You might need to get an operating system independent so you can run it in Docker or just a Linux, or it may be a Windows shop that has to be. So it's something that you have to take in consideration. Does it provide a web or mobile user interface to access those reports or not? And one particularly interesting feature of those reporting solutions is if they allow you to run ad hoc reports. So you might have power users that can create new reports and then try to come up with new reports that might be useful for others. This is a functionality that is quite important for those power users. And it's of course, it's the latest part is the analytic part. Does your reporting solution need to provide this kind of functionality? So you have to be able to drill down through data, and that's a lot of other functionality that analytics provides to you. As for data sources, those reporting solutions usually understand any SQL database, can connect to any SQL database through ODBC or JDBC. Some may be also using ADO.NET as a data provider. They can mostly read all kind of structured or unstructured data files like XML, JSON, Excel files, that kind of things. and some of them can even consume SOAP or REST services. Now, I'm thinking also about this approach of a data integration. I was working a lot with the data warehouse project on a period when I was working for IBM. So the point here is that you don't have to really have a huge amount of data or to start thinking about a data warehouse solution. There data warehouse solution, the idea there remains the same. You need to get data from multiple data sources and integrate that in a single place, so you can actually run the reports on that that piece of let's say that common data storage that is going to give you a complete information, an overview of all the data sources that your application are using it. And for that, it's we usually use is an extractor from transformation load product. Actually, you get the data from your application data source and move it to a consolidated data source that you are going to use afterwards for reporting. It also means that you have to somehow create a business catalog, because the people that are going to run reports don't know much about your internal application data structure. They don't know the table, the fields, the relation between the tables. So you have to create an extra layer of meta information for them and tell them, well, this is the customer table, and the relation between customer and order, it's going through that. So they are going to be able afterwards to create reports and even create drill down reports. So go to from one level to another. If you maybe create aggregate tables, so to speed up some report, then you have to drill down to a level of detail that they are interested in. And it's all about dimensions and fact. Dimensions, it's actually the tables that doesn't change very often. There are tables like customer, product, addresses, and there are the facts that everything that happens, you have an order, you have a purchase order or an invoice that you send to the customer. Those are the facts. Those are the tables that have usually a large number of tables, records, sorry. Some of the popular reporting solutions on the market today, there are Tableau seems to be very popular, in progress even. There was Crystal Report that was bought by SAP. Business Object was also very popular at some point, was also bought by SAP. Some older solution that was used by in progress were Corvu. Maybe if anybody heard about them. Yeah, so those are the main, let's say, solution in outside of Progress Open Edge world. But one of two solutions that is worth mentioning in Progress, it's Data PA, that they started with a Open Edge focus and now can access many. So it's yeah, Nick is here if you want to talk to him afterwards. And there is also CyberQuery. They have the solution from Cyber Science, that they are focusing mainly on the Open Edge data sources. So there is plenty of other solutions that you can look at. Maybe one of the interesting one that it's provided by Google. They also have a data designer, which is very nice. You can actually expose your data using REST or APIs. So you can start looking to that if you are more into that new reporting solution. And yeah, Google working with data. And it's also very nice as a UI. What I used to present in the Progress User Group sessions was Java reporting engines. Those are still a valid solution for you. They are all open source and also provide a commercial variant if you are interested in support. There were a couple of things changed since my last talk. Eclipse BERT is not part of Actuate, it's open text nowadays, and Pentaho was acquired by Hitachi Vantara, which is a big Japanese VR consortium. You can still find that on the community edition solution. It's still hosted on SUSEForge, but they also provide a commercial version. Jasper Report was probably one of the, and it's still one of the most interesting and most used reporting engine in Java world. They have a library, a Java library that you can actually embed it in your application. They provide a user interface, a very nice graphical. One interesting aspect is that you can actually publish reports on a web server, and you can access them from web UI. If you are thinking about integrating data from other applications or other data sources, they also provide a solution for ETL. It was called Talend at that time. They started to use Visualize.js, and that was back, I don't know, 6 years ago. And so they now have a full graphical web UI, which looks better. And for the Java part, they are the only one in Java runtime engines that claim that they can come up with an absolute pixel perfect layout. If you want to print a document that has to be pixel perfect, that's one of the solutions that can be used. This is how the report designer looks like for them. It's very easy. You can define your data sources, and then you have many other areas that you can create in a report. You can create a header, footer, then groupings, and then present the data that you want to show on each of those levels. They have graphical component like pie chart and a lot of other charts that you can choose from, and you can use formulas and that kind of aggregation inside of that. But yeah, it's pretty much you can expect from a reporting designer. This is something that you can publish on a Jasper Report server. You can have dashboard, you can have reports that you can drill down from one level to another. So it's also very easy to publish those reports and make them accessible to people that don't necessarily use your application on a day-to-day basis, because people in marketing, for instance, or top management doesn't have to go and use your CRM or ERP application just to get out some data. You have to provide them with something else. And a web UI for those kind of dashboard and the reports that they are interested in, it's a better solution than just embedding some kind of report inside your application. Another popular solution in Java is the BERT report engine. This is part of the Eclipse for quite some time. Solution that it's provided by Eclipse. It's pretty much the same, that they don't really have a pixel and absolute positioning that you can choose for your report. So you actually have to lay out data more or less in a web way of table layout, that kind of thing. It's not really going to be a position, absolute position, but it's yeah, it's going to be able to export data in many other custom export format, PDF, Word, Excel, that kind of things, and it provides basically the same functionality. It doesn't provide you a report server, so you have to build your own. If you want to expose those reports to, you actually have to build your own solution where you can publish those reports. And the last solution that it's available in Java, it's Pentaho. It's also a reporting engine that you can embed. They provide a report designer. There is also a powerful BI engine, report engine that they can host your report, where you can publish those reports and made it available as in a web UI. The data integration provided by was called Kettle, and that it can also connect to any other data sources to integrate it into your small data warehouse production database that you can use it for reporting. Again, much like Jasper Report, they claim to have absolute positioning, absolute layout, so it can be a pixel perfect report if you need that kind of thing. This is how it looks like, the report. Maybe the UI is not as nice as the one from Jasper Report, but functionality-wise, features. And this is the Pentaho BI server, which is something very interesting because they tried to put everything, all the solutions that they provide in the same BI, they call it a BI server, so you can have the ETLs, you can manage the ETLs from the same place. They have something that was very, very good for them, was this analysis view, where you can create new analytics reports, interactive reports where you can drill down. And they also provide dashboards, so it's yeah, more or less the same functionality as Jasper Report. Accessing the data from a Progress database application. Well, this is something that you can think of using for accessing the data inside of a report directly, or if you go to that direction where you say maybe it's a better idea to get the data from my database, from my OLTP system into another reporting database that I can use it later on. This will help you reduce the data load on your application, the number of reads that are very interested in. So you have two options. If you want to run operational reports against your OLTP or against your application database, you can do that. You can access that. The Progress provide the JDBC driver for that. Or you can use the same JDBC driver to get the data and move it to another SQL-based solution, or it may be also be another OpenEdge database, but used for reporting. Well, when you use JDBC, the language that you have to use is SQL. So that means that you have to start the SQL engine for the database. You have to grant security, create users, make sure they don't have the right to mess up with your data. One thing that you have to be aware is that the SQL engine is using a cost-based optimizer. It is not an index-based, so they don't do that at compile time as in Progress. The index selection is not done at compile time. They have to know the data. You have to analyze the data, so the cost-based optimizer can figure out what index the query is going to use. So that's very important. You have to update statistics very often. And there are some things that might bite you. The SQL with is one of those. If you run a report and you get a nasty SQL exception from Progress saying that data in one field is exceeded the maximum width, and that's the thing that it's happening. And another thing that worth mentioning is that the 4GL trigger, that if your database is using that for, I don't know, referential or that kind of thing, those are not going to fire from SQL if you use SQL. What we did a couple of years ago, many years ago already, is say that maybe if we come up with a better JDBC driver, we are going to help customers go to that approach, and instead of embedding the reporting solution in their application, they can use another reporting engine. What we thought that maybe we can write a driver that is not going directly to the database, but it's using Progress application server and talk to the business logic layer. So this is what we did. We have a full-fledged JDBC driver that is using the Progress application layer. You can actually write for each statement there that it's going to give you back data instead of writing SQL statements. But the most important part of it was that you can actually run a .p that is going to give you back temp table or even a data set, so multiple results set for Java. You can pass input-output parameters to that, so it was very easy for us to reuse the existing business logic in reports that the customer wants. So as I said, it's a type 4 JDBC driver. It supports most of the 89, I think, standards. It has a native connection, so it's not going to go to the SQL engine. It's using the 4GL engine through the Progress application server. You can expose the business logic, so you can run anything that we call a store procedure, because the equivalent in SQL is a store procedure. You can execute that. You have a complete metadata, so you see all the tables, all the business exposed as a store procedure there. It supports the 4GL ABL syntax, provides support for multiple result set, aka the data set, and it also have the full data metadata support. After that, another thing that we tried to come up with was maybe for those of you that want to integrate the reporting solution inside of a Progress application, open edge based application, we created this Abl Bridge that allows you to start the reporting engine, so you can start the report from your 4GL application. And that it's again, using any JDBC database from your 4GL application can start a report that is using many data sources, not only your Progress application, your OpenEdge database, but data from another application that runs in your organization. It also can consume XML data sources, can take report parameters, and one of the coolest feature that we had is to create a dynamic report generation that it's using templates. That was for tabular reports, where it was pretty simple, but it's something that we use for data dump most of the time. So this is how you probably start. Looks like the Abl Bridge started from running on Linux. You can start a report and see that data out of the sport database inside of a report viewer, which is actually a Java client that we start from Progress. So this is what I'm going to end with. The things to consider if you want to have some kind of reporting functionality in your application is whatever you think that you are going to do, start doing something now, because we see that often in progress world. People are waiting for progress to come up with a solution. I don't think progress is going to come up with a reporting engine. So there are so many reporting engines out there, solution that you can already use. You can access the database, OpenEdge steps, so you can actually do. If you need integrated reporting, which is at some point you need some kind of operational report inside the application. Those have to somehow be made available inside the application, because people that are going to use the application need to be able to run some kind of reporting. They don't need to run analytics or dashboard inside of application, but those kind of operational reports has to be accessible from your application. The better things to do is to go with a web user interface that make that data and that information available to a broader audience than the users that are using your application, like marketing crowd or the top management. They need that information. Happening, they ask for a report from the particular application, but it's always better to have that information delivered to them in a web UI where they can access directly. They don't have to ask someone to come up with a report and have them on their desk. The business catalog is something that you should think about, and also it's also easy for the one that are going to have a clear understanding of what the application database contains, what are the tables, what are the relation between the tables, and give them a better name sometimes, because the table names, the naming convention that we use in Progress application, especially the old one for table names and field names, are not really that appealing for the report designer, because they don't know anything about an acronym that we are using in a database schema. So you have to make them more explanatory for those guys that are going to create a report. And the last thing that you might consider is to create a centralized data storage for reporting. This is something that is going to help you, not because you are going to be able to get data from all data sources. You can also clean the data, because we always have customers in multiple applications. Of course, you have to take into account probably the data that is coming from your CRM application, because this is where the real is going to be entered most of the time. But you have the same customer information in many other applications. So warehouses doesn't have to be large, but it's something that is going to help you on a long run. So I think this concludes my presentation. I'm running a little bit out of time, so if there are any questions. Okay, thank you.